Hello, welcome to the first mini review of 2017. Today I'm going to go into the 1970s and cover some films featuring early work from legendary makeup artist Rick Baker. And for anyone who doesn't know who Rick Baker is, shame, but also he is the ultimate motherfucker of makeup effects. When the Academy Awards first started including a Best Makeup category, Rick Baker was the first person to win. And since he has won 6 other Academy Awards for his makeup work, and like everyone who works both in front of and behind the camera, Rick Baker had to start somewhere. The first film he ever worked on was a 1971 aquatic horror film known as Octaman. And I actually kind of knew about this movie before. Clips of it were featured in Joe Dante's film Gremlins 2: The New Batch. And what is Octaman? Octaman is a extremely low-budget horror film with a little bit of sci-fi in there about a group of scientists who go exploring in the forest and near a lake, and they end up discovering some kind of mutation or creature that just never appeared before. It's that type of movie. And it's a octopus that stands upright and kind of walks like a human. And if this plot sounds the least bit familiar to any classic horror film buffs, it should. The writer and director of Octaman was Harry Essex, one of the writers for 1956's The Creature from the Black Lagoon. And how does Octaman work as a low-budget horror film? I'll be honest, it's fucking bad. I mean, it's not anger-inducing bad, but it's just really lame and, to be honest, pretty boring. I mean, there are these scenes with the octopus monster where it attacks all the humans, and those scenes are kind of fun, but all the other scenes in between that focus primarily on the human scientist characters, they're just really drawn out. And the first time I saw Octaman, and we had to spend like 10 minutes focusing on just the human characters, I found myself kind of drifting a little. It's just pretty dull, and it doesn't really feel like the film ever becomes awake. But how does Master Rick Baker's work on the Octaman costume fare out? Nobody gets it right in the first try. I mean, as a Halloween costume, I guess the Octaman costume could look cool, but for a movie, even one with a budget as low as this, it just feels sad. I mean, the suit is primarily made out of rubber, and the face of the Octaman is just so stiff, solid. It's very thick rubber. The only flexible thing about it are the legs and arms so the guy in the suit can move around. And the most impressive thing about this, and I'll give it this, when the Octaman lifts his arms, we see the arms underneath move with it, and while it's pretty obvious it's being done by like a wire of some kind, you can't see the wire, so it does kind of look like that part of it is alive. But other than that, Octaman is just a pretty dull and not very exciting horror movie. And then after that, Rick Baker's career really started to build momentum. He would alternate between low-budget movies and big-budget mainstream movies, but he applied his talent to each film, and a good example of how his work had gotten better, even if the film itself wasn't that great, was the 1977 horror sci-fi cult classic, The Incredible Melting Man. Considered to be one of the worst films ever made, it got lucky and was selected to be riffed as an episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000 back in the 90s. The film is about an astronaut who returns to Earth after visiting Saturn and, I think, landing on it. 1970s science logic, don't question it. And after suffering a violent re-entry, the astronaut's skin is literally melting off his body. And driven insane by this horrific condition, he goes on a rampage, killing anyone who comes in his path, all the while his skin is dripping off, leaving a trail for the authorities to try and find him. At its heart, The Incredible Melting Man is a special effects movie. And while it's bad as far as story, writing, and acting, the special effects are fucking incredible. You really believe that this guy's skin, his brain, his whole body is just melting into a big pile of gooey shit. And the behind-the-scenes stories are always interesting to look into. Rick Baker had definitely stepped up his game, and this was just 4 years before he would do American Werewolf in London and win his Academy Award. So yeah, despite a lot of the film's retardation, I recommend The Incredible Melting Man.